Something is exactly the same, occupies the same space, same location, there can only be one of them. You cannot have, the moment you say that there's a ball here and there's another ball, and if you have two balls and you describe the two balls, same color, same shape, same height, same density, and it occupies the same space, there can only be one of them. You cannot have more than one. There can only be one. If you have something with a slight difference, then you have two different gods, but there will be conflict of will because there's a difference already.
So let's cut to the chase. Why is it Allah, not Christ?
Why is Allah not Christ? Okay, Christ in the Christian tradition was sent to the children of Israel through a virgin conception of Mary, and who was born as a human being, but understood to be an incarnation of the second person of the Trinity, the Logos. Now here is why Islam considers this to be not believable and not the true reality. Because God, there is only one of kind, only one God. And He doesn't have an offspring, or He doesn't have His attributes personified into other deities or deified forms. The Logos, the Christ is the Logos.
So your problem with Christianity is that God was in the flesh.
That's not a problem. The clarification that we say is Christ, as understood by the Christian orthodoxy, is something that is inherently contradictory, and it is incoherent, and it is not something that God revealed. Because you can have something incoherent, but God didn't reveal Himself to be in that way and that form. Just to elaborate a bit more, the God that we say is God and worthy of being called God has to be someone who is self-sufficient, someone who is independent. Christ, on the other hand, in Christian orthodoxy, I'm not talking about heretical Christianity, Christian Orthodox belief is not self-sufficient, is not independent. Christ is eternally, not temporarily, eternally begotten of the first person of the Trinity, the Father. So He's eternally dependent on the Father for His own existence, for His own life.
Okay, so let's say I'm with you there. So I completely agree with everything that you've said. So that everything you've said was an attack on Christianity. So positively, why is the Quran the correct book to follow?
Good, that's a very good question. So once we understand that there is God, and there is one God, and there can only be one God, so our expectation from what we expect as proof and evidence for Islam should reflect that this message talks about one God in His absolute perfection and what we expect it to be as God and as His message. So we should expect God to be all knowledgeable, to be all powerful, to be eternal, to be absolute, to be independent, to be ever-living, everlasting. The Quran describes God in that perfection. So you would say, okay, this book, the Quran, stands now as a candidate of scrutiny, that I can actually scrutinize this book, whether it's from God or not, because it's qualifying what I expect it to be, okay? Because if it says something like God, someone who need to put a rainbow in the sky to remind him of a promise that He made, you would say, that doesn't describe God in His all-knowing nature. God doesn't need reminding by a rainbow, which the Bible does, by the way, in the Genesis accounts. So you know that very well. So it doesn't describe God in His perfection. The Quran describes God and says God is such that لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. Sleep and slumber doesn't touch Him. That's how He is. He created the heavens and the earth in, He meaning God described Himself, because in Arabic you have only two genders, there is no third, it, okay? In 6 days, and no fatigue or weariness touched Him. In contrast, you'll find like in Christianity and in Judaism, God created in 6 days the heavens and the earth, and what happened on the seventh day? He rested and He refreshed. Rested and refreshed.
So my next question is, you've got Christianity describing a certain limited kind of God.
Yeah.
You've got the Islamic faith. describing an unlimited kind of God.
So what I described so far is just telling you as a starter in terms of whether this book is worthy of even studying and scrutinizing. So the Quran...
My question then is, what's the inherent value? I mean, he can describe an unlimited God, and I can describe an unlimited God.
No, what you're describing is what you're going to affirm as to the real characteristics of God. So what I'm asking you, firstly, the Quran stands as a very viable candidate for reflection. I haven't given you any proof and evidence yet. What I've offered you is that, yes, it's worthy of reflecting on, because it describes God what I expect God to be like. Quran offers positive proof for its divine origin, and it also offers at the same time falsification test so that you can falsify that it's not from God.
Okay.
It's a double way of establishing truth of its claim.
I haven't heard that yet, but
yeah, I'm just telling you it does, and I can tell you what it does. The Quran says, for example, as a falsification test, if you doubt, if you're a skeptic that it's not from God, then this is what you have to do to falsify it.
okay.
And it only doesn't limit you to say, oh, you have to do it by yourself. You can help and seek support and assistance from anyone else besides God to do that job. And it says, produce a chapter like the Quran. Because the Quran came in the language of Arabic. It came in the genre which was unlike the Arabic speech, given to a man who was illiterate. So they knew Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He grew up unlettered, not being able to read or write, and then in the age of 40, he is reciting the Quran. In such a way, it's not like any of the forms of speech or the poetry, the sayings of the soothsayers, and so on and so forth. And it challenges them. The Arabs were masters of Arabic language at that time. They were in their peak of eloquence. They used to have poetry competitions, and the best poem would be hung on the wall of the Kaaba. Okay, in the market of Uqas, they had all these competitions. So when the Quran came and addressed them, if you're doubtful that it's not a revelation to my servant Prophet Muhammad, then produce something like it. You should be able to imitate it, because you are the masters of your language. And the Arabs failed to do so, and they're failing to do so today. And the non-Arabs who are masters and professors of Arabic language are still not able to imitate a chapter like in the Quran. So the Quran was not falsified even to this day, and it's not being falsified yet.
Okay. So the contents of the Quran came at a certain time in human history, didn't it? What
Yes.
happened before that?
What happened before?
If it's eternal truth, then what happened before that eternal truth was communicated?
The Quran tells us that God is the creator, God of every people, humankind, all. God is the creator for all that exists. So He has sent warners, prophets and messengers to nations of the past, and every nation, every community had a warner, because God is just. He doesn't punish a nation until He sends them a warner, telling them what is required of them, do's and don'ts. Otherwise, it will be unjust of God. So that means in the past, God sent to communities warners, prophets and messengers, and the Quran describes many of those prophets and messengers, their life, their works. It talks about Jesus Christ, it talks about Moses, Noah, Solomon, Adam, David. It took us many of these prophets, important part of their message, what brought the downfall of their people for their disbelief, and what the disbelief was and the nature of it, and so on, what made people successful and what made people unsuccessful in this life and the hereafter. The Quran describes the stories and history of those prophets. So what happened before, those prophets that were sent with the message of God, or the same message that the Quran came with, didn't come with a new message. The message of Tawheed, oneness of God, that you should worship none but God and God alone, is the consistent message throughout. The differences were in terms of rules and regulations, how to conduct your life in a civic society and so on and so forth, how to deal with a criminal or someone who steals and someone who's a murderer. These things, legislative rulings, differed from society to society because the need of the people were different in different times and different places. Quran has come with a universal guidance and rules and regulation for all time and all places. That's the difference. But the core message is the same, that God is one. He created us to worship Him alone. If we don't worship Him, then we will end up in hellfire. if we do worship God with all our sincerity, in worshiping Him alone without partners, ascribing another deity with Him, then we will go to paradise which He created for us to enjoy our life forever and forever. So this message remained the same. So positive evidence, the Quran offers in various forms as it describes. So whether it's to do with evidence from psychology, evidence from natural sciences, evidence to do with historical information that the Quran provides, and no one seems to have known about it, and now people realize the historical truth the Quran is uncovering, or even the future things will happen. The Quran is prophesizing, and it happened. So you can see that these are positive evidences for the divine origin of the Quran.
You mentioned two words that were quite interesting. You said punish and hellfire.
Yeah.
Why is a God punishing?
Because God is just.
According to whose moral compass?
According to God. God who exists as the only being without brought into being existence. Non-contingent. Everything is contingent. God is the non-contingent, the necessary being. He describes about himself. He says, I am loving, I'm kind, compassionate, but I'm also just.
It doesn't sound very just to me if I just disagree. I mean, he can have his opinion. I don't necessarily have to agree, do I? Why do I have to be bound to hellfire if I don't agree?
So if God creates you, gives you life, sustenance for your life, and tells you, this is what you're required to do. This is your obligation on God. And if you don't fulfill it, then why do you expect God to reward you when you go against His commands? If you are employed by a company, and this is a very trivial example, and وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, God is the greatest description, it does not compare. If you're employed in a company, and instead of doing the works of the company, you don't turn up on time, and you do the works of the competitor, for example, why do you expect a salary at the end of the month or end of the week? Why do you expect some kind of wages coming from that company when you're doing nothing for the company?
I struggle with the power imbalance. I don't see why I should be subservient.
If you are given life...
I didn't ask to be given life, though.
No problem, but you are given life.
Okay.
It's not your choice.
That's my problem.
Yes, it's not your choice.
Sure. If you're in the Titanic and it's sinking, it's no point saying, why am I here? The fact that you are sinking is the problem. So the fact that choice is given already to you, you already have been given a life and given the faculties of a choice to accept or reject. It's up to you. If you want to reject it, if you want to reject God, you can do.
I want to reject life. God has given me this life, and I'm like, look, I don't really want it. I kill myself. Obviously, that's a sin in the Quran. But if I'm already given a choice to even not live, it doesn't seem like a very fair...
I mean, you wouldn't be able to be having a discussion if God didn't give you life in the first place. The fact that you have life, if you think about it, having no life to life is a good thing. I mean, I don't have to go and explain to you all the benefits of life and all the enjoyments that you're having and so on. It's because of they are not appreciating life because of some things that they need to be helped with and supported with, right? We need to not simply abandon them, we need to address their problems, their fears, their anxieties, and help them out of their suffering and misery. And then they'll come out of it, and they'll appreciate more. Just because they're poor people, don't say, oh, you know what, get rid of them. Because they are a waste to the society. They are a burden of the society. Just because people are ill, we shouldn't put them in a hospital, we should just destroy them by injection. No, we should help them out of their disease, out of their sickness, out of their poverty, and so on. So the reason that God gave us a life, you see, I didn't ask for it. The fact that I have it now, I have to then be responsible for what I have. I have the choice given. Look, you can be a rebel. You can be a stubborn individual, say, I don't care, God, whether you created me or not. You can do that, but with a consequence. Because He's given you life, so you have to now at least fulfill the obligation He's asking you to. If you don't want to, fine, bear the consequence.
If I enter into a contract, I'm a lawyer. If I enter into a contract, I have to sign on the dotted line in order to accept obligations. In this case, I didn't sign on a dotted line to be born, so why should I have to accept obligations?
Because the fact that you are already here, in this life, the contract has already been signed. The contract is already, because God gave you this life, so it's not something like, okay, now I have life, let me sign a contract. He's already created you. If you were not created and you were asking, I have no contract to sign, you could have said something like that. You could have said, okay, So there are people who are not created. Look, there's only a limited number of people who are created compared to the unlimited cosmos. Those people, they haven't signed any contract. But for you, you've already brought into existence, and this is already a demonstration that you are here. You know, why is it that you're saying, I didn't want to be created? Do you have some anxiety in your life?
Oh no, I love my life.
Right.
It's great. However, and I do appreciate that, you know, there is some God, there is some being that created everything that I see around me. However, I do struggle with the power imbalance. I struggle with some God handing me out something at his mercy if he wants to, but taking it away if he doesn't want to.
Okay.
It feels very unfair to me.
It will be unfair if God created you, gave you the faculties of reasoning, intellect, did not give you any guidance, did not give you any provisions, any sustenance, and just kept you just making you suffer and suffer. You would question it. What kind of God is that? But if God give you a clean slate, he brought you into existence with a clean slate, a bank balance like with no debt, unlike Christianity with a negative balance, right? Where you're already sinful.
Let's
No. Example, contrasting. You are created with an open slate, meaning there is nothing there. No sin, no good. You make your life. That sounds reasonable to me. And then constantly, he guides you. He even inspired within you. Quran says, he inspired within you the good and the bad. And he says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Successful are those who purifies their heart, their soul, and the losers are the ones who corrupts it. So he gives you an internal mechanism already to help you as like a head start, that you know what is intuitively good, virtuous. Like, how many people think intuitively killing is a good thing? Hardly anyone. No, psychopath is it's not intuitively, it's something wrong with the psychological state of affairs. Most people, if not all, they know that killing, harming others is not a good thing. So our Creator has given us within our intuition some of these qualities and asks us to enable us, to make us more noble, to perfect us in our characteristics, in our properties, in these positive virtues. So it is not that He's left us alone in our misguidance. He sent prophets and messengers to guide us with proofs and evidence so that we are not going to be a loser in this life or in the hereafter.
The not to kill rule is very obvious, and obviously everyone agrees with it. There are some less intuitive rules within the Quran and within other religions as well.
Yeah, give me some examples.
For example, you're not allowed to be gay.
You're not allowed to be gay. So if God created you to fulfill your relationship between the opposite gender, that's how He created you within your DNA, within your makeup, and then you have sexual orientation otherwise, that's your going against the divine prerogative, divine law. Imagine someone says he has or she has a sexual attraction to a tree or a dog, and they have their relationship satisfied like that. God is simply saying, I did not create you like this. Remember, the whole homosexuality, people are saying, God made me like that. No, God didn't make you like this. You may develop some kind of orientation, something depending on lots of circumstances. Okay? Lots of circumstances. It could be even the epigenetics, where the way your mom and dad, your mom basically how she was dealing with in pregnancy and so on. You can have many factors. But you were not programmed by God to be in that way. Even if some kind of epigenetics and other things makes you with this kind of feeling of attraction, God is not simply saying He's going to punish you for that. He says, look, these inclinations resist, and you will be rewarded for it.
So let me get this straight. According to Islam, you believe that a person, normal people, are always created in such a way that they're attracted to the other gender. And if there is someone who claims that they're created being attracted to the same gender, you are telling that person, no, you are wrong. You're telling them what you think your identity is, you are incorrect. So you're telling them what.
Let me understand something about identity. If I now feel like a woman, am I a woman?
Yes.
Okay, what is a woman?
A woman, well, I'm clearly a woman because biologically...
But I don't know what a woman is, because if you can say I'm a woman, so would you like to explain to me what is a woman?
Someone who identifies as a woman.
And what is that?
So, for example, I'm a woman. I'm very clearly a woman. I'm biologically a woman. I also...
No, I don't understand what you say. When you say the concept woman, what is that?
Let me explain.
Go ahead.
I am physiologically a woman. I am also psychologically a woman. So, I mean, you can't argue with that. I'm 100% woman, right? So, I am someone...
Now I'm trying to understand what that woman is.
I have the physiological features of a woman that we can agree with.
So physiology can describe what a woman is?
No, I'm not finished yet.
Oh, okay.
So I've got physiology, but I've also got, I look at my body and I don't feel dysphoria. I don't feel that it doesn't agree with my identity. There are some people in the world that look down at their bodies and feel I'm in the wrong body, I'm trapped in the wrong body. And that is something that only they can know. They know themselves best. And who am I to tell them that they're wrong? I'm not transgender, but I've got friends who are transgender.
Sure.
And it feels a little bit arrogant of me to tell them what their identity should be.
Okay, let's understand again the identity of woman. So I still don't know what a woman is. You describe your physiology, your biology describes to you a woman. Are you saying if you have those biological, physiological characteristics, the physical characteristics, right, from the chromosome X and X, that makes you a woman?
Well, it does make me a woman physiologically.
Right. So in what way are you feeling uncomfortable on this?
No.
Okay. So the biology describes women, but you're saying there's some additional criteria that makes woman to woman.
Yeah.
So what is the woman that this additional thing describes?
It's very elusive. I agree with you. It's very hard to describe. Feminine traits, psychologically, again, it's very hard to describe. But for example, if I woke up suddenly tomorrow in my boyfriend's body, I would feel very uncomfortable because that's not my identity. I can't explain. I'm not a professor in gender studies. I can't explain to you what a woman is, but I can tell you that when a person feels trapped in the wrong body, they disidentify, and that's a very difficult state for them.
Fine.
And I just feel very uncomfortable telling other people what their identity ought to be.
If I feel I'm a dragon trapped in a human body, you would be feeling very uncomfortable to...
The dragon is obviously different.
Wait. If I feel, it's my feeling.
Yeah.
Remember, it's all about my feeling.
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree?
It is about your feeling.
Good.
For sure.
So if I feel that I'm a dragon trapped in a human body, you will feel uncomfortable to tell me I'm wrong, right?
Yeah, I would, but I would also question where did that come from. That's a very...
Why do you have to question it? Because it's my feeling. Why do you even need to question when it's about all my feeling? I feel that I'm a dragon in a human male body, biologically.
Previously she said, who am I to a question?
Brother, it's okay. We're having a very nice discussion, okay? We shouldn't...
No, I'm not challenging, I'm really trying to understand.
That's what I'm trying to understand as well. Like, I'm just giving you a scenario back. So I will be accepted in a society, and if I feel that now I need to do my dragonly business, you should impede in any way unless it harms you, right? Imagine now, should I get some surgery to have fire out of my mouth, some kind of mechanism inside? Because I'm a dragon, and dragon have fiery things, right? So I should make surgery to have all this.
It seems a bit odd to identify as a different species.
It's not about odd or nothing. This is how I feel.
Yes.
So it's my feel. Remember, identity is about feeling.
I'm making a distinction between dragons, which are A, mythical and do not exist, and B, a different species.
Okay, a tiger then.
Again, a different species.
It's not a mythical. Tiger. I feel like a tiger.
Yeah.
So because it's about my feelings, it's not about questioning it's a different species, because that's me. I'm just trapped in the wrong body. So now, tiger, you should provide everything that I need to sustain my life as a tiger and so on, and you should respect all of that, and you should have no problem, right?
No, not at all. Because clearly you're doing things that a tiger cannot do. You can reason, you can talk. Yeah.
I'm trapped in a human body. That's why I'm not expressing tigerly actions.
So why do you think you're a tiger?
I feel like it. Do you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with that.
Right. So I am a tiger, right?
Understand.
So I'm a tiger in my body. So if I now want to make surgery to have a tail,
To become a different species.
no.
It's a different species. Isn't
It's not about different species. Who I am, my identity. Why are you questioning my identity suddenly?
Become a different species.
No.
No, a tiger is a different
The question is, who am I? I am what I identify myself as.
Yeah.
I am a tiger trapped in a human body. So if I want to now have surgery to have a tail to start with, it's okay.
To become a different species.
No.
You want
To
surgery.
become who am I? Tiger. I'm trapped in the wrong body. Don't men who are trapped in a woman's body have surgery to make them into what they think they are?
It's clearly the same species. It's
It doesn't matter what the species, it's what they think. That's the problem. Why my feeling of my identity is not respected now anymore. It's no longer, oh, you have to be within your species. What do you mean? I identify as who I am.
honestly, if you seriously believe you're a tiger,
Yeah.
I genuinely have no problem with that.
Yeah,
Unless
and
you go around
so if I now go to a GP and you are a GP, you said you're a lawyer. Suppose you were my GP and said, look, I want surgery to have claws, to have a tail.
I'm going to tell you that's not possible because I cannot transform you into a different species.
It's not about transforming different species.
Of course it is.
Transplantation, transplantation. I work in a hospital with transplants, BMT units. We are transplanting lots of things, bone marrows, transplanting lots of things. Well, all I need is a transplant of a tail, a tiger's tail, and I can be on immunosuppressants to make it not
Obviously,
repressed.
that doesn't work because
Well, it's not working. Well, go and establish more scientific data to give me a tail, because that's what I am.
I can't put an elephant heart in my heart.
Then make a heart of the elephant to transform me that works and my body doesn't reject. This body, which is not mine, because I'm trapped in the wrong body, make it work. Do your scientific
I
science.
mean, again, this is a very hypothetical.
Not hypothetical. This is exactly the gender identity that we're hearing about.
Of course it's not, because
Why are you discriminating me?
No, because you've got a lot of people actually who are saying I'm trapped in the body of a different gender. But as far as I can see, I haven't seen a wide group of people.
What if they?
becoming tigers.
What if you start seeing them?
Yeah, if I start seeing them, then I'll start having questions, and then
And you'll say it's okay. Eventually, you make laws saying no. If they want to become a tiger with a tail and a heart of a tiger, it's okay.
I don't know.
Where would we stop?
Because they haven't existed yet.
Hang on. People are identifying themselves as cats and dogs and wolves. Many things. They're transforming themselves.
If you go to YouTube, you'll find them.
It's not,
Are they like transplanting?
no, they're reshaping their body as much as they can. They are.
That's their choice.
So where does it stop? So what defines who you are is what you feel, right? Yeah. So eventually, for example, I can identify myself as a 5-year-old, so I can go into school.